She confronted the incredible billionaire, and in a surprising twist, he proposed marriage. Emma's heart raced as she navigated through the glittering throng of the charity gala, the air heavy with the scent of expensive perfume and dimmed by the weight of unspoken judgments. Beneath the extravagant chandeliers, she felt like a fish out of water, but tonight, her mission was clear. She could see Ethan Hale across the room, an imposing figure in a tailored suit, as he mingled effortlessly with the city's elite. Emma pressed forward, fueled by a sense of duty that surpassed sheer exhaustion. As a nurse, she had always put others before herself, especially now, juggling long double shifts at the community hospital and the agonizing reality of caring for her seriously ill mother. The relentless pressure had begun to fray at her nerves. The possible budget cuts to her hospital gnawed at her. How could anyone in this room understand the true stakes? She wrestled with her conflicting emotions, staring down the man whose policies threatened the very fabric of her work. A million doubts flooded her mind. Would they even listen? Or would she simply drown beneath the tide of their privilege? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The moment she confronted him, she felt the thrill of adrenaline and the fearful weight of the crowd's scrutiny crashing down around her. "Mr. Hale," she called out, her voice steady, though her insides churned, "your policies are tearing apart the very healthcare system we rely upon. Every day, I see the real impact of your decisions." The hushed murmurs that followed felt like daggers, piercing through her confidence. But she pressed on, sharing vivid stories of her patients, people who mattered far more than his bottom line. As the debate escalated, something shifted. For all his polish, she could see the conflict brewing in Ethan's eyes. A glimmer of understanding broke through his smug exterior. She wondered if he realized his choices had real-world consequences, and that the lives of the sick were stuck in the balance. It fueled her argument, her resolve solidifying like steel as they exchanged heated words. Yet, beneath the intensity, her mind raced with nagging fears. Could she truly change anything here? And as the clock ticked on her mother's health, did she possess the luxury of hope? But before she could dissect her growing fear that this confrontation might end in failure, her phone buzzed in her pocket. News of an accident had reached her. A long-term patient, someone she had fought for every day in those grueling shifts. The fleeting thought of losing that connection clenched her gut with renewed anguish. She found Ethan's gaze, and in that fleeting moment, their worlds collided. His wealth, her sacrifice, in a surprising turn. Ethan stepped close, his voice softened. "Let us change the game together. What if we partnered for reform?" He paused, his face resolute, an unexpected proposal landing heavy in the air. "And will you marry me?" Emma froze, a cacophony of fears crashing inside her. She was torn between the alluring promise of a new life, the love she yearned for, and the shadows of her past pressing heavily against her. Behind the glitz of the gala, she felt the weight of her mother's illness, the sacrifices she had made, and the very foundation of her identity at stake. As the crowd held its breath, she stood trembling on a precipice, the dawn of a new path shimmering before her. Could she navigate this uncharted territory, or would she retreat into the familiar strain of her struggles? An agonizing uncertainty loomed large, and she could only wonder if she could truly claim a future where love could thrive amidst her deep-seated responsibilities. Staring at Ethan Hale, Emma felt a tumult of emotions curling within her, each vying for dominance. The glitzy gala blurred, the laughter and music dimming to a distant murmur. His proposal hung heavier than any diamond ring, its implications echoing inside her mind like a thunderclap. Could she really consider this? A partnership meant a possibility, a chance to influence policy from inside. But it also meant getting tangled with the very person who had financially devastated her hospital. The idea made her stomach churn, yet curiosity licked the edges of her trepidation. What if they could reshape the healthcare landscape together? Her patients deserved better than what Ethan's decisions had inflicted upon them. But then, the gravity of what he was meandering toward nagged at her deeply rooted fears. Could she transform from advocate to pawn in the game of wealth and power? The corrosive effect of wealth on compassion chronicled in every story she'd learned during nursing school flashed before her eyes. Emma, Ethan continued, his voice dropping another pitch, attempting to infuse warmth into his proposal. I see the passion you have for your patients. It's rare. Together we can make real change. Think of a committee that combines our experiences. There was sincerity in his eyes, an unexpected sparkle that contradicted all she had assumed about him. Yet, something within her recoiled at that flicker of hope. If she accepted, would she abandon her patients, her beliefs, or even herself? Paradoxically, the prospect of love became a doorway to a life that could mean compromising everything she stood for. Could she trust a man like Ethan? Was this an opportunity to impact healthcare, or simply a means for him to bolster his image? She stepped back, gauging the crowd peering expectantly toward them, where intrigue intermingled with satisfaction. Ethan, she started, and the nerves sparked through her. I need time to think. You can't expect me to but you're a fighter, Emma. You don't have to choose between your career and wanting a future. His urgency captured a part of her that exhilarated even as it terrified. You would have the influence, the capacity, to enact meaningful reforms at a scale we've never seen. His words ignited something within her. Was it possible? But alongside the flicker of excitement came an avalanche of guilt. What would her mother think? The woman for whom she sacrificed her youth and dreams, still clinging to life, but increasingly fragile. And the betrayal would rip through her like a jagged wind if she were entangled with the enemy. You don't know anything about my reality. Your world is a far cry from the life I lead, she said, momentarily losing her composure. The intensity in her voice seemed to reverberate around them, catching the interest of those lingering nearby. And then Ethan moved closer, an earnestness softening his features. I want to understand your reality. I'm willing to learn, but I need you to meet me halfway. We can navigate this together. Her heart began to race, caught in the current of his desperation and sincerity. She found herself suspended in indecision, the urge to retreat clashing violently with an instinct to move forward. Could she be the catalyst for real change? Or was she merely falling into the trap spun by a man whose power came with its own cold calculations? Ethan reached out, taking a step toward making this both a vow and a challenge. As his hand hovered just near hers, a familiar buzz from her phone once again cut through the intensity. Another emergency at the hospital. The stark reality seized her. In that fleeting moment, Emma's resolve crystallized. Decisions made in emotional whirlwinds never lasted. She could not lose sight of who she was while exploring what she could become. With her heart racing, she shook her head. No, not like this. Not until I know what I truly want. The shift palpable in the air, she stepped back again, needing space to breathe. Would she give up on love in pursuit of integrity? The narrative pushed her toward an inevitable crossroads with Ethan, igniting conflict that both thrilled and terrified her. With her heart drumming in her chest, Emma made up her mind. A dialogue was necessary, but trust could not be so easily forged. She needed answers first about Ethan, about herself, and about what it meant to embrace both love and duty. A storm of uncertainty loomed overhead as she turned away to find a more private moment for reflection. The melding of ambition with heartbreak held her captive, and with each step, she understood that this was only the beginning. What sacrifices might come next, and would she stand firm when the real decision presented itself? In the quiet confines of an empty hallway, Emma's mind raced as she leaned against the cool wall, drawing in sharp breaths. The clamor of the gala faded into the background, replaced by the urgent rhythm of her thoughts. Ethan's words echoed, each syllable a reminder of the complexity of her moral compass. She was at a precipice, a chasm of possibility and peril. The phone vibrated with each heartbeat, a constant reminder of her responsibilities. The patient's needs beckoned her, grounding her in reality, just as the thought of potential change elevated her ambitions. She pushed herself off the wall, straightening her shoulders. A decision loomed, drawing nearer like a freight train. It was approaching fast, and she needed a plan. As she moved further from the festivities, the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses grew muffled, swallowed by her internal chaos. She was reshaping her identity in real time, with each step acting as a reminder of the dual life she was attempting to piece together. Could she truly balance passion, duty, and now, ambition intertwined with romance? Returning to the hospital wasn't just a necessity, it was a lifeline. The clinical environment provided solace. Here, amidst the sterile walls painted in soft blues and whites, she felt purposeful. Each patient represented a chance for healing, a stark contrast to the corporate maneuvering Ethan represented. But could those cunning negotiations lead to a landscape where such healing was not just an aspiration but a standard? What if she explored both paths, forming alliances without compromising her core values? The thought was slightly intoxicating. She imagined leading initiatives, advocating for patient welfare, while wielding influence at the decision-making table. The allure was heady, yet it was entangled with apprehension about what she might have to sacrifice. Inside the bustling emergency room, a nurse waved her over, breaking the spell of contemplation. "Emma, we have an influx of patients. Tested positive for a nasty flu strain. We'll need all hands on deck." The familiar urgency of her role sparked something inside her, a reminder of her worth. She was a fighter, as Ethan had said. Perhaps this intersection of her life was what she needed to navigate both worlds effectively. She moved with purpose, assessing the patients as they flowed in. From the breathless stories of parents to the hushed whispers of frightened children, each encounter reminded her of her calling. It clarified her intentions. She could advocate for her patients within Ethan's world too, but it would require strategic engagement. After hours of tending to the patients, adrenaline effervescing through her veins, Emma sat at the nurse's station, catching her breath. Her phone vibrated again, a message from Ethan. Despite the chaos, she felt a twinge of apprehension and curiosity. "Can we talk tomorrow? I want to discuss a proposal that's more than a partnership." Her thoughts spiraled. The urgency in his message was palpable. Was he ready to unveil his true motives? Or was this a tactic to draw her further into his realm? She couldn't tell if advancing into this conversation was folly or fortitude. Resolutely, Emma drafted a response. "Fine, but we need to set ground rules. No more surprises." After hitting send, she felt a strange wave of anticipation wash over her. The stakes were higher than ever. This juncture could become a turning point for her future. She couldn't shake the sense that her life was shifting violently, pushing and pulling her in directions she hadn't anticipated. New networks were forming, and while she delved into a world of influence, Ethan stood as both ally and adversary. Would she be the architect of her destiny, or merely a figurehead within a system designed to overwhelm? As the night crept into the early hours, she reluctantly accepted that every decision might lead her closer to understanding who she truly was. The confrontation with Ethan was inevitable, and the deeper question lingered. Was it worth the fight? Tomorrow was set to challenge everything she knew, demanding she confront the incredible. With a fragile flame of determination flickering inside her, Emma stepped forward, knowing she stood on the brink of a monumental choice. What dark truths might unfold, and would she emerge with her values intact, or falter in the face of ambition? Morning light filtered through the hospital's windows, casting a soft glow on the bustling hallways that Emma navigated with intent. The adrenaline from the previous night had transformed into a steely determination. Each step she took felt heavy with purpose. She was no longer just a caregiver, but a potential influencer eager to merge her ideals with the stark realities of the healthcare system. Before her meeting with Ethan, Emma paused in front of the nurse's station, her heart racing not with anxiety, but with empowerment. She could see the hustle of the hospital staff, the hustle that mirrored her own internal tumult. Flashes of conversations, patients she'd touched, lives she'd impacted played in her mind as she mentally prepared a strategy for the impending confrontation. It would be essential to hold on to her values while negotiating the landscape Ethan offered. She gathered her thoughts as she paced briefly, recalling the crux of their last interaction. Ethan was a formidable figure, often shrouded in mystery, but she sensed an opening for genuine dialogue in his invitation. The proposal he hinted at loomed large in her mind. What kind of proposal would it be? A partnership, a project, or something far more personal? Throughout her morning shift, she focused on the patients, channeling her energy into their needs, but the thought of her meeting lingered in the back of her mind. With each patient she treated, She envisioned how she could elevate their experiences beyond mere clinical encounters, perhaps even intertwining collaboration with Ethan's proposals for systemic change. At noon, the moment arrived. She found herself leaning against the conference room wall, awaiting his entrance. The stark contrast between her clinical attire and the polished world Ethan inhabited felt more pronounced than ever. But she was ready. She wasn't just Emma the nurse today. She was a force capable of advocating for her profession and patients. He walked in, tall and composed, with a hint of something unguarded in his expression. The tension in the air was palpable, a precursor to an uncharted discussion. "Thanks for coming, Emma," he said, his voice smooth but edged with seriousness. "Let us cut to the chase, Ethan. What's this proposal about?" Her tone was firm, embodying a woman who had mystery priorities to uphold. Ethan leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "I think we can do something extraordinary together. There's an opportunity to reshape how healthcare is approached in our community. I'd like you to be at the forefront of this. We could use your insights as a clinician paired with my resources." The words were enticing, sparking a flicker of enthusiasm within her, but she steeled herself. "What's the catch?" she urged, dissecting his intentions more than absorbing the offer. "No catch, Emma. I want you to lead these initiatives," he replied, a glint of sincerity illuminating his usually calculated demeanor. "But I also need to know if you're committed fully, no reservations." His phrasing triggered an internal alarm. Commitment? Did he mean professional commitment or something else? Each unspoken word seemed to weave a thicker web of intrigue around their conversation. "What kind of commitment are you expecting?" she countered, scrutinizing the unfathomable layers of his proposition. Ethan held her gaze, and for the first time, she glimpsed a man behind the corporate armor, a glimpse that compelled her to reconsider her defensive posture. "Let us not pretend this is purely business," he responded, a hint of vulnerability punctuating his words. "I'm not just proposing a partnership in our projects. I want something deeper, something real, potentially even a future together." The room felt stifling, swirling with implications that stretched far beyond her initial contemplation. Emma's heart thudded painfully in her chest. The professional world she had been constructing seemed to flicker in the face of this unexpected personal gambit. Was this what she wanted? A relationship that intertwined with the complexities of ambition? The moment hung suspended, her response teetering on a knife's edge. What did she truly want? Success for herself and the betterment of her patients, or a path tangled with another's ambition? As she contemplated her next words, the weight of the decision bore down on her, a culmination of every doubt and determination she possessed. "Ethan, I need time to think," she finally said, a note of resolve evident in her voice. The choices ahead were muddled, layered with personal and professional implications she wasn't fully prepared to unpack. As they exchanged glances filled with a mix of understanding and uncertainty, Emma caught a glimpse of her reflection through the glass wall, a woman standing at the brink of myriad possibilities, yet trapped by the stakes of each decision she faced. Somewhere within the interplay, she knew a reckoning awaited, one that demanded clarity about her own ambitions. Was it true strength to merge personal aspirations with a towering figure like Ethan? As she turned to leave, the echo of her steps resonated with a new stirring inside her, an awareness that whatever direction she chose next would not only define her future, but also illuminate the kaleidoscope of her desires. Tomorrow, she would make a choice that defined more than just her career. It would carve out her identity. The real question remained: could she innovate healthcare without losing herself in the process? As these thoughts swirled in her mind, she knew clarity lurked just beyond her next confrontation, a clash not only with Ethan, but with herself. Emma stood in front of the mirrored wall of the break room, tracing her fingers over the cool glass. She could see herself clearly, her scrubs rumpled but practical, her hair pulled back into a no-nonsense bun. But it was her expression that intrigued her. Gone was the tentative nurse so accustomed to accommodating every demand of her role. Instead, she saw determination etched across her features, an awareness that choices loomed on the horizon, and she was at the center of it all. As she replayed the meeting with Ethan in her mind, a whirlwind of emotions swirled within her. The proposition had knocked her off balance, shattering the illusion of security she'd clung to in both her professional and emotional realms. The mere thought of intertwining her career with the personal ambitions of a man like Ethan felt like stepping into uncharted territory, and the consequences of such a leap were daunting. That night, the weight of her impending decision kept her from sleeping. Questions ricocheted through her mind. Was she ready to take risks that could redefine her career? What did leadership truly mean? To lead was to influence, to inspire, but it was also to expose oneself to the possibility of failure, to accept the ebb and flow of relationships beyond shared goals. As dawn broke, Emma found herself seated at her favorite cafe with a cup of coffee, the steam rising like her unsettled thoughts. Around her, the world awakened, but she remained cocooned in contemplation. She needed to lay her cards on the table, confront not only Ethan but also her own aspirations. What did she want out of this potential partnership? Did she even want to be part of it at all? With a newfound sense of purpose, she took a fresh notebook from her bag and began outlining her vision of healthcare, transforming her abstract thoughts into concrete ideas. The cathartic act of writing helped clarify her perspective. The first task on her list was personal. It involved defining her professional identity. Who was she as a nurse, and who would she become if she collaborated with Ethan? While doodling potential programs aimed at patient care and the community, Emma felt her confidence swell. She could be more than a cog in the healthcare machinery. She could be a catalyst for meaningful change. But she also feared the path that entwined with Ethan. Would she forfeit her autonomy? Would their relationship complicate her drive for advocacy? Her phone buzzed, snapping her back to reality. It was a text from Ethan, asking her to meet later that afternoon. The timing felt deliberate. He likely sensed her hesitation and was ready to discuss their future prospects further. Yet Emma, heart racing, felt a resistance blossoming deep within her. Was she prepared to face Ethan again, knowing so much was at stake? After a moment of contemplation, she replied with a simple "let us meet. I need to talk." The rest of the day dragged on as she floated through her nursing duties. Each patient interaction carried a weight she had not felt before, a new clarity guiding her every action. She was determined to keep her values at the forefront, ensuring that in whatever decision she made, the patient's well-being remained her priority. When the time finally came for her meeting with Ethan again, she experienced both fear and exhilaration. She had thought deeply about her goals and the prospect of their partnership, and it was crucial for her to communicate that. Would he understand her need for independence, or would he view her aspirations as a threat? Emma took a deep breath as she entered the conference room, steeling herself for the uncertain exchange ahead. The air felt thick with anticipation, and she glanced at Ethan, who stood by the window, his back turned to her. There was palpable tension between them, laden with unexpressed thoughts. "Ethan," she ventured softly, but with a steady resolve. He turned slowly, his expression unreadable. "You came." "I did," she replied, gathering her courage. "We need to talk about our partnership. I've thought a lot about what I want." As he stepped closer, their shared ambitions hung heavy in the air, and Emma could feel the weight of the moment. Was it possible for her to embrace this collaboration while staying true to herself? The confrontation would not only clarify their professional alliance, it would test the very boundaries of her own identity. And with that thought, Emma felt the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Ethan, before we move forward, I need to know what you really want, and what this will mean for both of us." The silence that followed hung between them like the calm before a storm, where answers awaited beyond the precipice of uncertainty. Was Emma ready for the clarity she sought, or would it unveil truths she wasn't prepared to face? Her journey of self-discovery was just beginning, and Ethan was both the key and the wild card in this unfolding narrative. Emma squared her shoulders, the weight of expectation pushing down like a heavy blanket. If this was to be a defining moment in her career, she needed to approach it with the same intensity she had shown to her patients. Standing before Ethan, she felt more alive than she had in years, the adrenaline heightening her awareness of every detail in the room. "What I want," Ethan began, his voice steady yet filled with an undercurrent of uncertainty, "is to build something significant together. I believe we can innovate the way healthcare is delivered. But I need to understand your vision, too. I need to know you feel this is the right step." Emma felt a flicker of relief mixed with apprehension. This was the opportunity she sought, the chance to assert herself not only as a nurse, but as a leader. "I want to ensure that patient care is central to our mission. We can't just focus on numbers or profits. We need to create systems that prioritize human connection and well-being." Ethan's brows furrowed as he listened intently, absorbing her words. "I agree, but what does that practically look like? How do we measure success in that framework?" Here it was her chance to articulate her aspirations. We could create community outreach programs that provide preventative care, not just react to illness. If we empower patients with education and resources, we can transform lives. I want to develop workshops to promote wellness, not just treatment. His expression shifted, a glimmer of respect breaking through the tension. That's ambitious, Emma. Are you willing to take financial risks to make this vision a reality? You know it won't be easy. Leadership is about taking risks. Her voice rang out, firm and clear. But it's vital to me that we also ensure ongoing access to care. I've seen the disparities in our system, and I want to be part of a partnership that ignores them. Ethan's gaze was penetrating, and the air between them crackled with intensity. She saw acknowledgement in his eyes, but she also sensed the challenges ahead. Encouragement and ambition swirled inside her, but there was a nagging hesitation. I want to create more than just a successful practice. I want to foster a community of healing. Can you align with that vision? Emma, he said, his voice low, this isn't just about the clinical aspects for me. I'm looking for a partner who can challenge me, inspire me, but also believe in this mission as passionately as I do. No compromises. A sudden warmth flooded Emma's chest. Perhaps this was not just a negotiation. It was an invitation to define their relationship as boundaries. But was he ready to truly embrace the collaborative nature she required? And what if I need independence? What if I want to make decisions that you may not agree with? She pressed. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, appearing contemplative. Then we figure it out, together. I don't want to stifle your creativity or your ethos, Emma. I want us to move forward with the understanding that growth often requires friction. Frustration flared within her, challenging the connection they had begun to forge. It's not just friction, I am looking for alignment, not compromise that diminishes my core values. Silence filled the room again, punctuated by the soft hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. Emma could sense the intricacies wrapped around both of their aspirations, the friction he described entwined with a promise of growth. Would you consider co-leading? He finally asked, searching her eyes for an answer. Taking a deep breath, her heart raced at the chances spiraling out into the unknown. Co-leading speaks to the collaboration I crave. It's a start. There was a palpable shift, as if she had taken a vital step toward claiming her identity. The tension seemed to dissolve, replaced by a foundation of shared ambition. But the conversation held more looming questions, and thoughts tugged at her resolve. What sacrifices would she need to make to balance her independence with their shared goals? Ethan, sensing her uncertainty, tilted his head slightly. What if this partnership could lead to something even deeper? Something transformative, not only for our careers, but also our lives? Emma's heart skipped, both intrigued and unsettled by the implication behind his words. The possibilities stretched before her like an uncharted map. Like what? She asked, her voice cautiously curious. His gaze locked onto hers, the air thick with implication. Like a real partnership in every sense of the word. Suddenly, she felt the ground shift beneath her. This was more than just business. Reality hung poised at the precipice of change. Emma knew she stood at a crossroads, where the personal and the professional danced dangerously close. Could she handle the weight of both career aspirations and emotional entanglement? As she stared into Ethan's eyes, the unspoken possibilities lingered, urging her to explore not only the professional venture ahead, but also the tantalizing implications of their connection. Would she embrace the risk and navigate this dual path, or retreat to safety and clarity? The next step loomed, challenging every conviction she had held. Emma's mind raced as she processed Ethan's proposition. The allure of partnership shimmered brightly, but the implications of intertwining her personal dreams with professional ambitions sent ripples of doubt coursing through her. She had fought too hard to carve her own path, too long to create a career that reflected her values. Now, was she willing to risk it for the prospect of something deeper with Ethan? Ethan, she began, her voice wavering slightly as uncertainty weaved through her resolve. It's not just the partnership in business that concerns me. The thought of our personal dynamics evolving feels risky, almost reckless. What if it muddles our mission? Ethan remained quiet, his expression thoughtful but unwavering as he leaned against the desk. She caught a flash of determination behind his eyes, a fierce ambition that mirrored her own. It both intimidated and fired her spirit. Everything has risks, Emma, he finally replied, the conviction in his tone palpable. But what if this dual path could lead us to create something greater than we can alone? What if we could genuinely innovate healthcare? Think about the possibilities. His words were compelling, weaving a vision that stirred her imagination. She had always envisioned a way to intertwine personal values with professional aspirations, but this approach felt alien yet exciting. There's a finality to your proposal that frightens me, she admitted, her breath hitching. The idea of blending our lives is exhilarating, but it's a gamble I'm not used to making. Then maybe we should take the time to explore what that blend would mean, he suggested, his voice dropping to a soft intimacy. Let us clarify our goals and values together, rather than jumping headfirst into uncharted waters. In that moment, Emma realized they were both outsiders in their respective worlds, navigating the convolutions of ambition in unison. Perhaps this was an opportunity to delve deeper into herself, to challenge not only her values, but also to see what new facets they could uncover together. Agreed, she replied, gaining confidence as she spoke. But it has to be clear that any emotional component must not overshadow our professional mission. Duly noted. Ethan relaxed visibly, the tension that had laced the air between them beginning to dissipate as they recalibrated their expectations. Let us identify our roles. I want to lead the initiative on community outreach programs while you focus on the operational framework. We need to generate clear metrics for our success that don't just reflect monetary gain, but the qualitative impact on our patients' lives, she suggested, her pulse quickening with renewed focus. I like that, he said, a glimmer of admiration sparkling in his eyes. We can develop a model integrating heart and efficiency. We're talking about a collaborative spirit for both patient care and business operations. The surge of passion ignited within her. Emma felt the pieces of her vision falling into place, a strategy that didn't just satisfy her ambition, but also nurtured her values. Yet, just as she allowed herself to hope, a familiar wave of hesitation crashed over her. What would happen when their professional disagreements arose? Ethan, if we stand firm together, we also must agree on how to face dissent. Successful partnerships require transparency, even when it's uncomfortable, she cautioned. I can commit to that, he answered with a steely determination. No topic is off limits for discussion, even when stakes are high. If we're going to co-lead, we must encourage accountability for each other's actions. Emma knew that the tension between them could shift from shared goals to personal conflict, but she felt prepared for the challenge. This partnership was a test, but it was also an opportunity to evolve as leaders. Just as excitement swelled in her heart, Ethan leaned closer. You realize this isn't just a business partnership. It could become something even more profound, he murmured, his voice laced with meaning. She felt a chill dance down her spine. The intense implications of those words hung in the air, electrifying every fiber of her being. Would she allow herself to traverse this unrehearsed path, where her professional goals merged with her feelings? In the silence that followed, Emma understood the depth of their interplay. Their futures were intertwined, standing on the edge of both promise and uncertainty. Let us take it one step at a time, she finally replied, grappling with the enormity of her decision. But I can't ignore the potential of what we're building. Ethan nodded, seemingly relieved by her response. Still, a question lingered unvoiced between them. Was she prepared to confront not just their joint enterprise but the emotional complexities it might summon? Suddenly, the door burst open, interrupting the moment. A colleague entered, breathless with unexpected news about a healthcare regulation change that could impact their plans significantly. Looks like we might have another layer to navigate, Ethan remarked with a wry smile. Emma felt that familiar rush of adrenaline. With challenges looming ahead, she would need every bit of clarity and conviction she had mustered. If they were to succeed, both in healthcare and in whatever else their partnership would become, they would need to face each obstacle together. Would this newfound collaboration withstand the forces seeking to disrupt their ambitions? As she turned to Ethan, an unspoken agreement formed between them. The journey ahead would not be easy, but it would certainly be worthwhile. Emma sat silently, her mind racing with the implications of the regulatory change. She felt a mixture of urgency and fear creeping in, focusing on the weight of her decision to enter into this partnership with Ethan. The gravity of the situation honed her instincts, forcing her to return to her core principles. Ethan, we need to strategize immediately. This could derail everything if we aren't proactive, she said, her voice firm but steady. As they pulled the chairs closer to the table, she became acutely aware of how this could shape their future not just as co-founders, but as collaborators navigating a complex relationship under intense scrutiny. With each moment, her excitement began to mingle again with trepidation. "Okay," he replied, sliding a notebook towards her. "What are your initial thoughts?" She flipped through the pages, covered in notes and observations she'd made before. "First, we should assess the effects this regulation will have on our operational framework. Let us categorize them: immediate impacts, midterm adjustments, and long-term implications." He watched her, his penetrating gaze not just evaluating her thoughts, but absorbing them. Emma began to feel a kind of respect blossom in the space between them, shifting her apprehension into something more productive. As she began to outline the immediate impacts, Ethan interjected, "Don't forget that among all these changes, we have to seize new opportunities that might arise from compliance adjustments as well. Let us draft proposals around that." The synergy was palpable, igniting a fire within her. Emma realized she thrived in these moments, solving complex problems, engaging in intellectual discussions, and executing plans alongside someone who seemed to match her drive. "I agree. We could even position ourselves as thought leaders if we approach this right," she noted, scribbling her ideas with renewed passion. As they collaborated, she felt the initial tension slowly shift into a healthy camaraderie, the kind she had always envisioned in a partnership. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. Could she maintain this equilibrium long-term? However, as they plunged deeper into planning, the thought soon emerged. What would happen when they inevitably disagreed? "Ethan," she said, pausing thoughtfully, "we have to anticipate challenges. What if our differing viewpoints lead to conflicts? That could undermine the very foundation we're building." His expression turned serious. "Then we take a step back. We refocus on our mission and remember why we took this leap together in the first place." His assurance bolstered her confidence, but a nagging doubt continued to lurk beneath the surface. Emma pondered whether her idealism about their partnership could withstand adversity. She hadn't made a career out of playing it safe. Every decision had been a calculated risk. Yet, committing to someone else's vision began to feel like a leap blindfolded. "Let us make agreements on how we'll handle dissent," she proposed. "If we have clear boundaries and rules of engagement, we can minimize the fallout when tough conversations inevitably arise." "I'm all in on that," Ethan responded, nodding his head. "Let us set ground rules that keep our professional integrity intact, even when emotions run high." Drawing definitive lines in the sand provided her with a sense of control she desperately craved. But a growing awareness of her feelings toward Ethan complicated everything. This journey had less to do with mapping out a business and more about navigating a partnership rippling with potential emotional depth. As they finished their initial brainstorming, Emma felt a rush of clarity. Ambition surged alongside her apprehension. But then the boundaries of their conversation frayed once more, drawing her into the uncharted territory of her feelings for him. A flicker of anxiety ignited within her as she questioned whether she would ultimately have the strength to separate her heart from their mission. "Ethan," she began, her voice faltering slightly, "what happens if we cross those boundaries? If this partnership becomes something more?" He hesitated, a hint of vulnerability breaking through his otherwise confident demeanor. "That's the risk we have to embrace. And honestly, I wouldn't want to hide from it." Emma looked deep into his eyes, feeling the weight of their unspoken questions hover between them. What would this leap reveal about them, and could they navigate the potential fallout without losing sight of their professional goals? They wrapped up their meeting, but the silence that followed was charged with implications far beyond business. Ethan broke it, holding her gaze with an intensity that made her heart race. "No matter what, we need to be transparent with each other. Every step of the way. I can commit to that. But we must also remain committed to our mission." "Ethan," she replied, her mind oscillating between ambition and caution. As she turned to leave, Emma couldn't help but wonder, would they be able to balance their burgeoning feelings while tackling an unpredictable professional landscape? An ominous feeling whispered in the back of her mind, were they venturing too close to the edge, risking not just their careers, but their hearts in the process? Despite that fear, excitement thrummed in her veins. With one last look over her shoulder, she picked up her pace, heart racing. The path ahead was veiled in uncertainty, but she felt the urge to confront it head-on. Their next meeting was scheduled, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling she was about to uncover layers of truth that could change everything both in business and within her own heart. Emma spent the next few days pacing the confined spaces of her mind while the world outside moved obstinately forward. The urgency of their meeting seeped into every facet of her daily routine. Her mornings began early, fueled by coffee and the distant hum of anticipation. Each sip was a reminder of the challenges that loomed both personal and professional. She structured her days around the upcoming meeting with Ethan, poring over the documents that outlined their business model adjustments. But as she analyzed the regulatory changes, another layer emerged. She was drawn not just to the data, but to the prospect of how their partnership could redefine their trajectory. The nagging thought continued to haunt her. Could she also forge a path that strayed into the emotional territory she was beginning to fear? With a deep breath, Emma grabbed her bag and made her way to the office. The walk there felt both exhilarating and daunting, charged with unspoken possibilities. Each footfall propelled her deeper into uncertainty, and she found her resolve wavering. Would her calculated strategies be enough to support the weight of her unguarded emotions? As she entered the building, she steeled her spine, reminding herself of the work at hand. The atmosphere crackled with energy. Employees buzzed with excitement over their product launch, a clear indicator of the stability her company needed amidst the regulatory upheaval. The stakes felt impossibly high. Her heart beat faster as she approached the conference room where she would meet Ethan, each step amplifying her mixed feelings. She had to compartmentalize her burgeoning feelings to maintain her professional composure. But could she truly separate emotion from the business? He was already seated at the table, reviewing notes. Emma's pulse quickened. He appeared every bit the confident co-founder. But there was still vulnerability glimmering in his eyes that drew her in. "Hey," he said, glancing up with a smile, and her anxiety faltered momentarily. "Hey," she replied, drawing strength from that brief connection. Settling in, she opened the notebook, ready to dive in. "Let us review the proposals," Ethan suggested, his intent gaze fixed on her. With each point they discussed, the synergy they had identified previously began to materialize again. Their ideas flowed seamlessly, and for those moments, it felt like they could take on the world. Yet, lingering at the back of her mind was the haunting thought of their earlier conversation. The boundaries remained tenuous. "Emma, I've been thinking about what you said last time," Ethan said, looking tentative yet resolute. "About us crossing those boundaries. I think we need to put it all on the table. Can we allow ourselves to explore this dynamic, if it exists?" The world spun, and her momentary high from strategizing crashed amid the weight of his admission. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she processed his words. On one hand, there was tantalizing allure to exploring this new possibility, but on the other, it felt monumental, an unanchored leap into a tempest of unpredictability. "We can't afford to lose focus on our mission," Emma said finally, her voice firm even as her heart raced. "We owe it to ourselves and everyone involved to stay grounded." "Absolutely. But avoiding the conversation won't make it go away," he countered, leaning closer, clearly wanting to understand her hesitation. Emma grappled with sighing and frustration, her mind battling the instinct to step back, yet the spark igniting between them made retreat unfathomable. Could she break through this protective cocoon woven from doubt and strategy? Suddenly, the enormity of her feelings mingled with her profound desire to succeed crackled in the air, and she found herself at a crossroads. It wasn't merely a decision about business, but a reckoning about who she was becoming. "Ethan, I want to be transparent, too," she whispered, her voice almost lost as she faced his intense look. "I can't deny what I feel, but I can't let it derail what we've built, what we're building together." He took a deep breath, studying her with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. "Then, let us make sure we have a goal in place. A plan to keep us accountable. Because I can't navigate this without you." As tension filled the space between them, Emma realized they stood on an intricate precipice, one where every decision mattered. The complexity of their partnership pressed against the walls of possibility. Her mind raced, caught between the urgency of the business and the depths of her own heart. Would she step off the ledge and explore what lay beyond, Or would the fear of failure keep her shackled? The tremors of uncertainty quaked through her resolve. This wasn't just about regulations or strategies anymore. It was about a journey where the path was uncertain, yet beckoning. She leaned back, grappling with her next move. Taking a step closer might bring profound fulfillment or disastrous repercussions. What if we can redefine what success means to us? She proposed, breaking the tension. The words tumbled out, laden with potential. Then we redefine it together, Ethan said simply, his gaze unwavering. Emma exhaled slowly, realizing the answer was tangled in the complexity of choice itself. What awaited her if she embraced vulnerability? The conversation shifted as they delved deeper into strategic discussions, but the unacknowledged undertow of feelings didn't recede. It lingered like an uninvited guest, teasing her resolve to keep business and emotion separate as they wrapped up. Her heart raced not just with the prospect of working together, but with the realization of a decision looming large on the horizon. Would she risk her heart to truly connect with Ethan, or allow caution to fortify her walls? The stakes were high, and the time had come to face both the heart and the mission. Emma exited the room, the challenge drifting endlessly before her. What path would she choose when the lines between business and desire blurred into vulnerability? Emma stood at the threshold of the bustling hospital, basking in the daylight that flickered through the windows, a stark contrast to the dimly lit gala where her life had pivoted in impossibly complex ways. No longer just a nurse struggling to balance her professional duties with personal responsibilities, she had unearthed her own potential for leadership, a potential now set to transform the landscape of healthcare around her. Across the last few weeks, she had established herself in a new role alongside Ethan, one marked not only by strategic planning, but an ongoing negotiation of boundaries. They worked together as co-leaders, transforming despair into hope for their patients. Each initiative they implemented, community programs, educational outreach, was painstakingly crafted from the very fabric of Emma's values. The healthcare reform beyond what she had dared to envision just a few months prior unfurled before her as real, concrete, and achievable. In the midst of the chaos of the emergency room, Emma found clarity. Every patient she treated echoed her initial struggle, fighting for compassion in a world dominated by profit margins. Now, she wielded influence, not as a solitary fighter, but as a co-architect of a system demanding innovation and empathy. The foundational principles she'd fought to uphold were manifesting into something vibrant and alive. She had proven not only to herself, but to Ethan and the wider community that her ambition could coexist with her compassion. The tangible results of their shared initiatives were beginning to emerge. Hospital wait times decreased as they established a patient triage protocol that prioritized those in most critical need. Grant applications rolled in faster as their initiative began to draw attention. External validation came pouring in, from local news to industry experts recognizing their work. Emma's name became synonymous with healing, respected and sought after in a realm she once felt far fated to challenge. But amidst the accolades and achievements, the personal connection with Ethan evolved too. No longer cloaked in ambiguity, their relationship solidified through mutual respect and shared aspirations. They weren't just colleagues. They had become allies who recognized the duality of their dynamic, threading through discomfort with honesty. Emma learned to embrace vulnerability, to share her fears without judgment. Every open door revealed not only professional lifelines, but emotional, tender moments that deepened their bond, a unique blend of collaboration and intimacy she had never anticipated. One particular morning, after a particularly grueling night shift, Emma walked into their shared office to find Ethan poring over reports. As she entered, he looked up, his expression morphing into a warm smile that erased the fatigue she felt. "Ready for another day?" he asked, lifting the heaviness from the air. "Let us do this," she replied, intent on channeling her energy into their mission. Together they strategized ways to leverage their recent successes, but Emma felt a stream of impatience inside her. They were good, but they could be groundbreaking. "Ethan, we need to aim bigger," she declared, eyes twinkling with fervor. "What do you propose?" he asked, leaning forward, entirely engrossed in her vitality. Emma outlined the concept of a regional summit, a meeting of stakeholders to share their findings, advocate for healthcare reform, and establish a platform for the voices of caregivers and patients alike. It was ambitious, far-reaching, and it required them to step into a space of leadership they had yet to fully inhabit. But the notion intrigued Ethan, their shared excitement palpable as they spent hours mapping out what the summit might achieve. Weeks later, as Emma stood at the podium addressing an audience of notable leaders from across the healthcare sector, she felt transformed, a confident advocate equipped with knowledge, a visionary unafraid to demand the changes necessary for sustainable care. The applause that erupted felt like a culmination of her journey, a capstone to her experiences not just as a caregiver, but as a change agent. In that moment, she found the fulfillment she always sought. This victory was not solely hers, but reflected the power of collaboration with Ethan and, deeper yet, a partnership built on respect and transparency, leaving behind shadows of uncertainty. She had become both a source of strength for others and, ultimately, for herself. Emma stepped down from the podium, the crowd's engagement offering validation, and her gaze instinctively found Ethan. There he stood, pride illuminating his eyes, a silent acknowledgement of her ascent. It was in that shared glance that the ambiguity of emotions settled. They had not just influenced a community. They had forged an indelible bond. As the day concluded, amid the gathered professionals, Emma realized her journey of transformation had navigated far beyond professional realms. She was no longer constrained by fear. She had conquered it, demonstrating that true leadership demanded not only vision but a steadfast commitment to values. The road hadn't been easy, but she had embraced change, emerging empowered, confident, recognized, established not just as an influential nurse, but an invaluable leader in the healthcare arena. A future teeming with promise stretched ahead. The story had not ended. It was only just beginning. With newfound clarity, Emma prepared to face what lay beyond, consciously crafting a destiny where compassion and ambition would no longer be at odds, but harmoniously intertwined. Now is the time for you to take action. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire motivation and transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for these empowering narratives. Comment below your thoughts and theories about Emma's journey. Let's engage in this community of growth. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this impactful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread inspiration.